Hezbollah launched their largest airstrike since October 7 against the Israelis. And again, just to be specific, they did this in the Golan Heights, which are in Syria, but they happen to be occupied by Israel. All right. So this is an extremely, extremely strategic place. Just to give you an idea, this is Syria, the Golan Heights. Do you see the dotted lines here? These dotted lines, this area, these are the Golan Heights. Just so you can see the topography of what we're talking about. Look how high that goes. This base sits at the highest elevation of compared to any other Israeli base. It's perhaps the most important base that the Israelis have. It overlooks all of northern Palestine, all of Syria, southern Lebanon. You can see literally everything. The Israelis also have a position on the mountain. Not this position, but nearby. And that's what Hezbollah bombed. And they did it with the largest barrage of drones that they've ever launched. Okay? I mean, just absolutely wild stuff. You see it smoking right there at the top of the mountain? This is such a strategic base because you can see everything. You can see literally, I mean, just hold on. Let me try and show this to you. Perhaps you'll understand what I mean. This is another angle, okay? You can see down on everything, on the Sea of Galilee, on Palestine. And then if you look on the other side, of course, I mean, it's a bit difficult from that specific point to see as clearly as you would, because you have to traverse a bit to go and see into Syria. The Israelis have other positions for that. But this one is so strategic. And you understand now why the Israelis took all of the Golan Heights in 67. On top of that, you see this topography that I showed you before. What's at the top of the mountain? You've got snow, water. That water comes down into the Sea of Galilee. So the Israelis get 1/3 of their drinking water from here, meaning they steal it from Syria. You understand? They steal 1/3 of the drinking water that they consume is stolen from Syria. Okay. In addition to that, you've got oil that and gas that they've been drilling to try and obtain. They've built a ski resort. You know, they're enjoying themselves. They're enjoying themselves, the Israelis. They're enjoying themselves. I suppose that couple that were blown up in the car might have been trying to get to the ski resort. I don't know. Maybe they were trying to get to a military area. I found this headline rather funny. Look at what it says here. A U.S. citizen was critically wounded in a Hezbollah missile attack on an Israeli military outpost on the border with Lebanon. That's this one. All right. Israeli officials tell him it is unclear what the U.S. citizen was doing in this area, which is a closed military area. Oh, it's unclear. I see. Well, maybe he was a military dog. I don't know. It's unclear what he was doing. Maybe he was getting lunch. I don't know. He can spy, you moron. He's a spy or he's in the IDF. What are the choices here? Is it really that difficult to figure out what he was doing in a closed-off military area? You goddamn moron. These people call themselves journalists. Unbelievable. Anyway, you got to laugh at this stuff. It's so funny, you know? So Hezbollah, in addition to striking this, all right, in addition to launching their largest airstrike, because when they say airstrike, I mean, now they have the capability to fire rockets from drones that are in the air. Okay, I mean, it is quite rudimentary. It's not with the sophistication of an F-15 or an F-16, obviously. Nevertheless, it's technically an airstrike. But that's not what happened here. They're not talking about that first airstrike that we saw back in May. What they mean here is they fired a bunch of drones. Okay, so I mean, those also count as an air barrage. So they just fired a whole bunch of them. All right, and in addition to that, they published this video, which is about 9 minutes long. I'm not going to play all of it, but just look at the significance of it. It's also in the Golan Heights, okay? So it's all along this entire strategic area here, okay? Which looks down on the Sea of Galilee, on all of Palestine. I mean, you can see so far with this thing. It's one of the most important surveillance bases that the Israelis have. So what Hezbollah did is they went and filmed the Israelis. And the Israelis were none the wiser. Can you imagine? None the wiser. Look at this. right, this is episode 2. The first one, you remember they filmed all of these airstrips and refineries and petrochemical storage facilities and also the Haifa port. This is part 2 with the Golan Heights. Okay, that's the Golan Heights. That's the Sea of Galilee. Mount Hermon is up there where it's white. Okay, and this is part of Syria. Okay, so the Israelis stole all of this in 1967. It's illegally occupied by Israel. And Hezbollah are operating from Lebanon up here. Okay, so when they fire at the Israelis in the Golan Heights, they're essentially firing east. Okay? They're firing east. I mean, unless they're firing from these positions, which would be just south. But you understand the idea. It's going like that. Okay? So that's a radar facility, okay, radar station. So these are not just random Israeli military sites. They're the most top secret ones that the Israelis have. Absolutely wild. This goes on for 9 minutes. Okay, absolutely wild, amazing. They filmed the whole damn Golan Heights. I mean, look at the. It's really impressive. It's really impressive. So you're not hearing about these developments, I take it, on Sky News or CNN or any of that because of how embarrassing they are. Rarely will you hear any of this. It's really that bad for them. I'll show you some of the barrages they've been launching. So this is a mix of footage from. This is 8th of July. Okay. See the Israeli base right there at the top of. It's amazing because they don't even have any Iron Dome left to shoot down the rockets. Because again, these are quite rudimentary rockets. They're not missiles or anything. They should normally be able to take them down with Iron Dome. Can't do it. There is no Iron Dome left. And then on top of that, so they're not only disrupting the surveillance capabilities, they also have to then. So they're also putting a lot of stress on the. Public on the public sector and civil defense when they have to then dispatch all of these firefighting crews and ambulances and police and civil defense to evacuate people because everything is on fire. Really just an amazing mess. I mean, on the one hand, you could look at what's happening, what Hezbollah are doing, and consider that even more impressive than what the resistance in Gaza are doing. Although I feel it's unfair to say that or compare them because they're just different. They're different kinds of warfare, right? They're different kinds of warfare. What they're doing in Gaza is very close quarters, urban. I mean, here just the topography itself is different. The weapon systems that they're using are just different because it requires different ones. You know, you don't see Hamas setting up Katyusha rockets every second, for example, because they just don't need them in that environment right now. So nevertheless, it's brilliant in its concept because Hezbollah are putting pressure on the Israelis from the north. Just going back to the map, okay? Again, look where we are. We're in the north of quote-unquote Israel, okay? We're in the very, very north here. This is between where Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine converge, okay? That's the Golan Heights. Gaza's down here, right at the bottom. So by giving the Israelis hell up in the north over here, you're drawing their forces away from the south in Gaza, okay? So they have to go up to Lebanon, up to Syria, to deal with that. And I mean, we know for a fact that that's been working, and it's been in effect since October 8th. So immediately, you know, they jumped in, Hezbollah. Here's some more footage. This is from earlier today. Okay, this is the Burkan rocket. Again, these are very, I mean, they're designed to cause enormous damage. The warheads inside weigh about 200, 300, 400, 500 kilos, depending on the model that's being used. And from an auditory point of view, they're also meant to cause psychological fear in the enemy by simply making a lot of noise. It's that simple, really. Okay, so both enormous in damage and in psychological impact. Here, take a look at it being launched, and I mean, look at the size of that thing. I know it doesn't look big on the screen, but if you compare it just to the rest of the installations on the hill, it's enormous. It's absolutely monstrous. Look at that explosion. Okay, so these are different units that are being used. These are new. So this is also artillery, but we're not talking about rockets. We're talking about precision guided shells. These are new. They've just introduced them or just started using them in any case. Man, I swear to God, this is something that you know, because speaking of psychological impact, the Israelis not knowing what Hezbollah have in their arsenal is a fear factor in and of itself, because you don't know what they're going to pull on you, or you know, once the real war starts, or the hot war, if this isn't already a hot war. Now, this again is not a major development, but still an interesting one nonetheless. And we saw this is the first video evidence of it being used in any case. So you might be looking at that and seeing and thinking, well, why are they bombing houses? There's no one in these houses. All the Israelis on the border have been evacuated months ago. There's no one in these houses. If there's anyone in this house, it's going to be Israeli army, because they're setting up shop in the houses like they usually do wherever they go, in the West Bank, in Gaza. This is what they do. They hijack houses, including their own, and they just set up shop in there. And then they talk about human shields, which is very funny. So again, the idea is keep the Israelis distracted from Gaza, put pressure on them, but don't turn it into a full-fledged war. That's the whole concept behind the Hezbollah campaign. And of course, put pressure on the public sector. We've got to bust the settlers away. Where are we going to put the settlers? Got to put them in hotels. You know, all of this costs money, it costs time and energy, and it distracts the Israelis from Gaza. Because, again, as bad as it is in Gaza, there is absolutely no doubt it would be even worse without what Hezbollah are doing, without question. Just from a logistical point of view, they would not be able to do as much damage as they would now that Hezbollah are distracting them militarily and also in their so-called civilian or public sector. It's just a logic, right? It's just plain simple logic. Now, just to go back to the start of the video, I used to get I would always be confused by the videos because they wouldn't blur anything out. Now they blur too much out. So, well, better more than too little, I suppose. Better too much than too little. But you can see that there's a bit of a cement structure there. So it seems they've put this in the ground, right? To hold that, and I'm assuming it's covered with overgrowth or shrubbery afterwards. And just from where it's being fired, I mean, I showed you another video last week of you know, this rocket battery coming up from the ground and then firing at the Israelis. It's quite amazing, honestly, how they're able to conceal these things. So if it comes to a full war, full-fledged war, I think the Israelis are going to be taken by surprise in terms of where the weapons are located, just as much as they are with soldiers popping out of the tunnels back in 2006, which incidentally is the anniversary. You know, the anniversary was a few days ago. But in any case, the largest barrage of rockets, of drones, and in the strategic Golan Heights, which Syria, you know, given everything that's happening inside of Syria, you know, the American occupation, Israeli occupation, Turkish occupation, is simply unable to deal with you know, repelling the Israelis entirely from the Golan Heights. So, I mean, ironically, this is the most action we've seen on the Golan Heights since 1973, which is significant because the day that October 7 started was the anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. Okay, I don't know, many people don't recall that or notice this, but the date was very significant. It was 50 years to the day. Okay, almost 50 years to the day of the Yom Kippur War, and Syria took the Golan Heights back for a day and then lost them again. And so that was a very bad military defeat, right? We had a series of military defeats, 1948, 67, and then also 1973, right? So 48, 67, 73. And October 7 made up for all of those. It restored honor to people in Palestine, people in Syria and Lebanon. I mean, it's like I said, it's the most action we've seen. And it's successful. It's not just for the sake of firing rockets, okay? It's successful action. So obviously, they haven't taken back the Golan Heights yet, but Israel is more at risk of losing its foothold in the Golan Heights than it ever was before, without question, because this is a sustained campaign now, been going off of 9-10 months, right? They're unable to make any headway. And so the fact that Hezbollah, which is a non-state actor, is able to help out Syria, a state, in fighting the Israelis in that territory is amazing. Is amazing because usually you would think, well, obviously the state would have more power than a non-state actor, and well, given it's the Middle East, it's very complicated. But you know, many things are not how they would be in other theaters of war. So in any case, in this scenario, Hezbollah, without question, I mean, put Syria aside for a second. If you look at the entire planet, there is no guerrilla fighting force anywhere in the world that comes near the power that Hezbollah have, right? None. They do not have the manpower, the numbers. They do not have the same kinds of weapon systems. Hezbollah is a formidable fighting force. Even the Israelis recognize this, right? Everybody recognizes this. It's just an objective truth. It's an objective, completely objective truth. You can measure it. And that's why they're able to make a lot of headway, helping Syria and Palestine at the same time, while also avoiding a larger war. That's the key thing to remember, because you know, somebody else might have screwed it up and made it bigger, which is, you know, the critique that you hear a lot in Lebanon, but it's unsubstantiated. So in any case, you know, in Hezbollah are making more and more progress. They're reaching more and more milestones, and the Israelis are being pushed further and further back. As a joke, and again, it's a joke just because it's funny, but it's actually it's completely true. You have Israeli settlers who are threatening to make their own country in the north because they're so fed up with Tel Aviv not doing anything for them. I'm not kidding you. They wanted to like, they wanted to break away, right, and make something called the State of Galilee and basically take everything, north of here, right? So we're talking about all these settlements like Kiryat Shmona, everything looking out on Shtulla, Mutalla, everything around here. They wanted to make their own country. Obviously, they're not going to succeed because there are not enough of them. But, just that should give you an idea of how far back Hezbollah have pushed the Israelis. You could say that that is now the new front line. Look at that. You could say the new front line is everything down here underneath the red. Okay, that's how far Hezbollah have pushed it. It's a remarkable achievement. Truly remarkable. Again, YouTube demonetized my channel because I'm not allowed to say naughty things about Israel. Telling the truth is forbidden. So if you are able to donate a few dollars on PayPal or on a monthly basis on Patreon, please consider doing it because it would really help me continue my journalism and support independent media. So I'd be very grateful. And the links are in the description and also in the chat. Thank you guys very much again for all your donations and all your kind comments. I appreciate it very much.